Hey guys, welcome to another Trade Genius podcast. I got my good friend Bob Kudla here. We warned you about the Ides of February, and we're starting to see cracks in the dam. We're going to talk about that some more in this video. Let's dive in.
Trade Genius.
All right, Bob. So we warned about weakness at the latter half of February. Today was not pretty in the markets. So what do you think?
We've been telling you guys that the 15th of February to the end of March OPEX is a very weak period of time. And almost like clockwork, as soon as the VIX expired on Wednesday, the wheels started coming off the apple cart. And they tried to attempt a few attempts to kind of lift the markets, but then today people just gave up and we rolled down. So the first chart I want to show you here is basically just a high level thing that's on liquidity. If you see here, that's the TQQQ. This is the most, I would say, egregious example of bullishness in the tech space. And we have the alligators here. And I think these alligators are starting to close here, Phil. And we'll talk specific stocks here in a second. So the next chart I want to pop up is this is from one of our customers. And I'm always interested. The cycle stuff's kind of interesting to me. And I'm not a super big cycle guy, but when you see selling happening before the top of that arc, they call that left translated, which means that the trend is reversing ahead of when you'd expect the cycle to go. And usually that's, in this case, that would be more bearish than you would expect. And, it looks like we're dropping into a, mid-March bottom here. And then the last chart's actually from you, Phil, that I stole off the chat room. This is historicals. And these next 2 weeks in February are particularly bearish on average. So everything's lining up. And then we have the big names getting crushed. Palantir started yesterday. NVIDIA was down today. MicroStrategy was down today. The uranium space was down today. SPY was down today. I mean, everything was down today. And so I think we are in a situation now where the numbers have to start matching up to the derivative flow. And I think we're going to look for a March bottom. I couldn't even hazard a guess where I think it's going to end up, because my initial target was for us to hit 598, and we almost got there today. So I would think we'd probably, maybe we should talk about this next week where we think maybe the target is. I didn't have a chance to look yet. I was too busy making money on the short side. So I could be macro this weekend. And we left a lot of our puts on, Phil, for the weekend. So, and the other one too is that looks like we may be pushing up a little bit of a high on natural gas. And, that Boyle trade, it doubled in a week or two. And that looks like it could reverse here pretty hard. All we have to do is get a whiff of warm weather to send the algos scurrying in the other direction. And that might be a good put trade as well. So a lot of opportunities here. We were joking in the market room this morning is that even if the markets don't crash, volatility picks up like this, we're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah. And also too, I noticed the European markets looked a lot like, say, the Palantir chart where it just ramped up. And we're starting to see, you could argue that maybe we're seeing a blow off top in that move, like the DAX, for example, had a bearish engulfing on the daily. So there's definitely some exuberance that's blowing off here. But I thought the Palantir chart, I thought the Meta chart, all those things were in such a bullish move, a blow off type of move, really. And the way that they've come back down is certainly stuff that you can build off of to put in a top. And I'm with you, even this timing chart, I have something similar for Bitcoin. If you do the CME chart, the futures, which the institutionals pay a lot of attention to, and that kind of ends up in the middle of March too, like this. So if the markets roll over, crypto's not going to be spared either. And a lot of people, I see overwhelmingly on Twitter that they're looking for alt season to show up. And I just don't think it's going to. And dominance has been higher than it has been in quite a long time, Bitcoin dominance, that is. And what people fail to realize is that not only is Bitcoin dominance, how much of the market cap is going into Bitcoin, that's also a representation of the liquidity. If there's a lot of liquidity in the system for crypto, then Bitcoin dominance shrinks because everybody's chasing altcoins. When that liquidity dries up, everything kind of comes back home to Big Daddy, and that's Bitcoin. So you can also look at that as a representation of liquidity in the system. So we're as illiquid as we've been for a couple of years in that space, and I think it's readily evident when you look at some of these altcoins that they're down 80, 90% from the highs a few months ago. So I think overall, we're kind of seeing the signs and the clues that you would expect to see if we indeed are putting in a top across the board.
Yeah, look, I mean, you can't take 15 to 20% 50% out of the federal budget, okay, and you have loans I guess this is the year for the massive amounts of loan refis on the commercial side from 1.5 to 6 and 7%. You can't have those kind of activities and not affect the stock market. So, just time to buckle up. Hopefully the market will, act seasonally, that we'll get a bounce in late spring before we roll over again in late summer. But there's no promises. It's with this liquidity, I think they're taking Trump seriously now. So it's going to be really interesting to see. Anyway, you guys have a great weekend. Phil, thank you for everything. If you want to trade with us, tradelikeagenius.com. We had an awesome day today. People paid for 10 years of the service today. So come check it out and learn how to trade this crazy market, and you can be richly rewarded. Anyway, have a good weekend.
Trade Genius.